Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh was assassinated at around 2 a.m. on Wednesday. That's according to Iranian media, who also say he was staying at a special residence for war veterans in North Tehran. Hamas called the strike a severe escalation that would not achieve its goals. A senior Hamas official claimed Israel was responsible, though Israel gave no immediate comment. Iran's Revolutionary Guards confirmed Haniyeh's death in Tehran, only hours after he attended a swearing-in ceremony for the country's new president. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas strongly condemned the killing of the Hamas leader in comments reported by Iran state media. Meanwhile, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said he was seeking to cool rising tensions in the region.
I don't think war is inevitable. I maintain that. I think there's always room and opportunities for diplomacy, and I'd like to see parties pursue those opportunities.
However, Austin also said the United States would help defend Israel if it were attacked. The news comes less than 24 hours after Israel claimed to have killed the Hezbollah commander it said was behind a deadly strike in the Israel-occupied Golan Heights, complicating chances for a ceasefire agreement in Gaza. Senior Hamas official Sami Abu Zuhri told Reuters it is a grave escalation intended to undermine Hamas's resolve, adding that the group are confident of victory. Haniyeh, who is normally based in Qatar, has been the face of Hamas's international diplomacy as the war set off by the Hamas-led attack on Israel on October the 7th has raged in Gaza, where 3 of his sons were killed in an Israeli airstrike. Appointed as Hamas's leader in 2017, he often travelled between Turkey and Qatar for ceasefire talks or to talk to Hamas's ally Iran. The International Criminal Court Prosecutor Office requested an arrest warrant for him over alleged war crimes. At the same time, it issued a similar request against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Demonstrators packed the streets of Caracas on Tuesday, cheering for Venezuela's opposition, who said they had vote tallies to prove that President Nicolas Maduro had lost Sunday's election in a landslide, despite the country's election authority declaring his victory. Opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez waved what appeared to be tally sheets at the crowds, alongside opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, who was barred from running in the election but spearheaded the campaign for Gonzalez. They said Gonzalez had more than twice as many votes as Maduro in the presidential election, based on the 90% of vote tallies they've been able to access. With these numbers, we will begin the reconstruction of Venezuela hand in hand with all of you, Gonzalez told the crowd. Venezuela's electoral authority had announced on Monday that the incumbent president had secured a third term with 51% of the vote, saying he'd won the majority of valid votes. But the opposition alleges the electoral body is biased towards the dictatorial government. The US-based Carter Center, which observed the vote, said in a statement late on Tuesday the election, quote, did not meet international standards of electoral integrity and cannot be considered democratic. It added that the electoral authority's failure to publish disaggregated results amounts to a serious breach, outlining what it said was a deeply flawed process from start to finish. Protests have erupted across the country, with voters demanding transparency in the election. At least 11 people have been killed in incidents related to the count or associated protests, according to a local human rights group. As tensions ran high, cameras have captured police hitting and kicking protesters before detaining them. Maduro's government has denounced the protests as an attempted coup. On Tuesday evening, the president ordered military and police patrols across the country. He also called Gonzalez a coward and Machado a terrorist, accusing them of fomenting violence.
An Israeli airstrike on the densely populated southern suburbs of Beirut heightened fears of an escalation of wider conflict in the Middle East. Israel's military said it was targeting a senior Hezbollah commander in what it called a retaliation for a cross-border rocket attack that killed 12 young people. Whether or not it leads to a wider escalation will depend on how Hezbollah chooses to respond, says Rhonda Slim, a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute.
This is a highly densely populated area. I expect the casualty rate to increase. The combination of a hit on a civilian site in leading to a civilian casualty rate, that will mean that Hezbollah will respond. The question is how they will respond.
Beirut's southern suburbs are a stronghold of the Iran-backed Lebanese armed group Hezbollah. The Israeli military said the airstrike killed Hezbollah's most senior military commander. Lebanon's health minister told Reuters that the strike also killed another person and injured dozens, some critically. On her way to a campaign stop in Atlanta, Georgia, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris spoke to reporters about the strike.
Israel has a right to defend itself, and I unequivocally support Israel's right to remain secure and to defend the security of Israel. What we know in particular is it has a right to defend itself against a terrorist organization, which is exactly what Hezbollah is. But all of that being said, we still must work on a diplomatic solution to end these attacks, and we will continue to do that work. Thank you all.
Beirut had been on edge for days, anticipating an Israeli reprisal. Days earlier, a rocket strike on the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights on Saturday killed 12 children and teens on a football field. Hezbollah denied involvement in the attack, but said the group fired rockets at a military target in the Golan Heights. The killing of the youths prompted a high-level Western diplomatic flurry to avert a major escalation that could inflame the wider region. The Israeli military said it had issued no new instructions for civil defense in Israel, a possible indication that Israel did not plan further strikes immediately. Lebanon's foreign minister said his government condemned the Israeli strike in Beirut and planned to file a complaint to the United Nations over it. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said he did not believe a fight was inevitable between Hezbollah and Israel, though he remained concerned about the potential for escalation.
Likely Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris held a spirited rally in Atlanta on Tuesday that highlighted the new energy she has brought to November's election against Republican nominee Donald Trump.
So the momentum in this race is shifting. And there are signs that Donald Trump is feeling it.
The vice president took jabs at Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance.
And by the way, don't you find some of their stuff to just be plain weird?
There are less than 100 days to go in one of the least predictable election seasons in recent memory. Since Biden ended his re-election bid just over a week ago, Harris has significantly outperformed him in recent polling among young people, black voters, and Hispanic voters. A Reuters Ipsos poll published on Tuesday showed Harris with a 1-point lead over Trump, down from 2 points a week earlier. She was joined in Atlanta by rappers Quavo and Megan Thee Stallion, who performed before Harris's speech. Harris pledged Democrats would win Georgia, a swing state the party had written off, which could play a decisive role in November. She also taunted Trump for backing out of a debate with her.
I do hope you'll reconsider to meet me on the debate stage. Because as the saying goes, if you've got something to say,
Harris also appeared to embrace some Biden policy priorities, vowing to bring down prices on day one of her presidency. She said she would ban more hidden banking fees, take on corporate landlords, and, quote, cap unfair rent increases. After her speech, Harris appeared on a Zoom call with supporters, telling them, quote, this is a sprint, and asking them to volunteer. Her quickly assembled campaign has raised $200 million since Biden dropped out, and signed up 170,000 new volunteers. Sources say Harris will reveal her new vice presidential nominee at a rally on Tuesday in Philadelphia. The location suggests Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro has moved to the top of a short list of running mates.
France's economy grew slightly faster than expected in the second quarter, and the Paris Olympics is expected to bring forecast-beating growth in the third. Official data showed GDP rose 0.3% in Q2 as higher exports offset flat consumer spending. Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire said this was owing to economic policies, quote, working and giving tangible results. And he said 2024 growth would likely exceed the outgoing government's 1% forecast. That's especially with the Olympic Games likely to boost activity by 0.3 percentage points in the third quarter. Le Maire said France needed to stay focused on reducing spending. The country currently faces a political impasse after President Emmanuel Macron called a snap parliamentary election in June that produced a hung parliament. A left-wing alliance came first in the vote. It wants to form a government and radically change France's economic course with a new tax and spending drive. Despite the political crisis affecting business morale, the Olympics' effect means France could still see some economic wins.
It's all about AI as results come in from global tech giants. And there are growing signs of a divide between those spending on the technology and those already making money from it. Microsoft earnings disappointed investors on Tuesday. The tech titan warned it would have to spend a lot more money to build out its AI infrastructure, even as growth slowed in its cloud computing business. Over the fourth quarter, capital spending at the firm rose almost 78%, driven almost wholly by AI. The warning on costs sent Microsoft shares down as much as 7% in after-hours trade. One analyst said Wall Street doesn't have patience. It wants to see signs that AI is lifting revenues now. That is not a problem for the world's big chip makers. Tuesday also saw US firm AMD beat expectations and increase its forecast for AI chip sales by $500 million. The company is seen as one of the few potentially viable rivals to Nvidia, which dominates the market. A day later, it was a similar story for South Korean giant Samsung. On Wednesday, it reported a 15-fold jump in profits and forecast robust demand for chips, also driven by AI. The company's semiconductor division reported its best quarter in 2 years, driven by explosive demand for high-end silicon used for chatbots and the like. Chip prices were also lifted by the boom, adding another boost to the bottom line. Samsung shares rose close to 1% in early trades Wednesday following the news.
A large crowd of anti-Muslim protesters clashed with police on Tuesday in the northern English town of Southport, one day after a horrific stabbing during a Taylor Swift yoga and dance workshop. 3 girls were killed and 5 other children were critically injured. Although police say that the attack was not linked to terrorism and the teenage suspect was born in the UK, far-right groups have stoked speculation that the suspect was involved with Islam. Violence erupted when several hundred protesters threw items at a mosque. The crowd also damaged police vehicles by setting them on fire and throwing bricks and garbage containers at them. Merseyside police say 22 officers were injured during the clashes. Police linked the crowd to the English Defence League, a group which has sometimes staged violent demonstrations against Islam. Away from the violence, hundreds attended an emotional vigil to honour the victims killed in the attack. Prime Minister Keir Starmer was there.
I came here to pay my respects to the victims and families who are going through raw pain and grief that most of us can't imagine. I can't imagine as a dad myself.
A 17-year-old male is currently in police custody on suspicion of murder and attempted murder after the bloody rampage. Witnesses described the attack as being like a scene from a horror film. In addition to the 3 deaths, 8 children suffered stab wounds. 5 of them and 2 adults who had tried to protect them remain in a critical condition. Police say the motive remained unclear. Local officials claimed that many involved in the clashes were from outside the area, and the Liverpool Region Mosque Network condemned those attempting to exploit the tragedy for hatred. Fans of Taylor Swift have raised over $320,000 for the victims' families and the hospital treating the injured children. Concerns about rising knife crime in the UK continue to grow, with Starmer vowing to address the issue.
Landslides swept through tea estates in southern India's Kerala state on Tuesday, killing dozens and leaving many missing, authorities said. The hillsides collapsed following torrential rainfall a day before, sending rivers of mud, water and boulders onto homes in the Wayanad district. Most of the victims are tea and cardamom estate workers and their families who were asleep at the time in makeshift tents. Nearly 350 families live in the region and some 250 people had been rescued so far, state officials said. The state's chief minister told Reuters a proper death toll is difficult to establish, as many body parts have been spotted in the river. Here's Excise Minister of Kerala, MB Rajesh.
We fear that the gravity of this tragedy is much more than these numbers. Rescue operations are being carried out on a war footing. Police, NDRF, Fire Force and various agencies are actively involved in rescue operations.
Rajesh said those rescue efforts were hampered due to a collapsed bridge near Churaumala, which links the disaster zone. Army engineers were roped in to help build an alternative bridge, the Chief Minister's office said in a statement. The Weather Office said there was extremely heavy rainfall over north and central Kerala so far on Tuesday, with more rain predicted through the day. It's the worst disaster in Kerala since 2018, when heavy floods killed almost 400 people.